Good morning. I'm Liz Cassidy. Welcome to the Recruiting an Outstanding Team webinar. This is the steps to take to recruit an outstanding team when you don't know where to start. And we're going to spend 1.5 hours approximately today going through this great content, and it's going to be jam-packed. So if you have pen and paper, please grab them now. Be prepared to take notes. We're going to move at a fairly fast pace. Quick background on me. I have a chemical engineering degree which qualifies me perfectly to talk about this. For the last 8 years I have run my own leadership and executive coaching business based here in Brisbane in Australia, and over the period of time I've had numerous management roles. I was HR manager of a construction company for a year. I've worked with a recruitment firm. I've run my own consulting business. But my background, I started off in Exxon as a chemical engineer, and that's where I was first exposed to the idea of recruiting and how to recruit and how to run interviews and how to find great staff. So I've got a very varied background, including running 3 different businesses. If there's not much about recruiting a team that I don't know, so let's move on. As this is a recording, you won't be able to use your control panel, so we're going to move through that. The sponsor today is me. I'm going to be making an offer near the end of this webinar, but only after I've fully delivered my promise of once again giving you outstanding value, outstanding content, and giving you a very clear picture of what you need to do personally to recruit an outstanding team for your organization. I'm going to be giving you my own complete set of recruitment templates, plus oodles of bonuses, and I'll be walking beside you every step of the way, but only after I've given you my promise, once again over-delivering outstanding value. Is that fair? Absolutely, it's fair. Great, thank you. So what we're going to be covering today: how to identify the gap or the role that you need filled, how to create a position description that you can use for recruitment and for managing the role, and I will be offering you a template for that position description. What are the key elements of the job advert and how to write them? And the job advert is a sales page. There is a way to do it, and again I'm going to show you how to do it in a fill-in-the-gaps manner. Where does your job advert need to go to capture your ideal target and your ideal candidate's attention? How to sort through the multitude of applications, and you will get inundated with applications in today's job market. How to prepare for an interview, what questions you need to ask, how to structure the interview, the questions you absolutely never ask. The step of reference checking, this is usually glossed over or missed or done badly. You need to do it really well. I'll show you how to do that. Profiling. Profiles that you need to use and the profiles that you absolutely should not use. Setting up the offer. So you're going to make an offer to them. How do you do it? What needs to go in the employment contract? How do you plan for onboarding and more? I'm going to take a detour. I'm going to show you what recruiters do. I'm going to show you what they charge you 20% of salary for. That's $15,000 to $20,000 to get you a candidate. I'm going to show you what they do and how they do it. So you never need to spend $15,000 to $20,000 finding a candidate ever again. I'm going to show you what to do it, what they do. So let's move through. Look at the job market today. 70% of people admit, now this is not the people who don't admit, this is the people who do admit to lying on their resumes, including the recently former CEO of Yahoo, who also lied on his resume. 50% of available job seekers don't apply for jobs because the adverts are full of jargon and the job seekers are repelled instead of attracted. Now, in Australia, job adverts fell in May 2012, and there's 2 reasons for that. I'll go through those. And in Australia, unemployment was 5.1% in June, and I know that where you're sitting, if you're not in Australia, your unemployment rate is much higher. What all of this tells me is we need to be able to market the role to the right people and have the right people attracted to the role. We don't want people repelled by your role. We want them sucked in and attracted to it. Moving through. How do you identify when you've got a role or when you've got a gap that you need filling? Okay, I know that in some organizations you are strapped for cash, and I know in some organizations you're downsizing. And you're going, Liz, I don't need this information right now. I don't care whether you need it right now. You will need it. So listen in. Take notes. Two ways. First of all, you're being proactive. You have a strategic plan. You know where you're going. Let's say that you have a general manager, you have a sales manager, and your sales manager has a strategy for growing sales. Great. He's rolled out the strategy. Everyone in the organization knows about it. You've got a manufacturing arm or a delivery arm. They're geared up, they're ready. But your after sales service people go, we can't cope. We're overloaded. Sorry, can't do it. Sorry, can't roll out that strategy. We can't cope. At that point, you know you have a need to fill extra resources in the service after sales service area. So if you have a strategy for growth in one area, there will be an impact on other areas. Have a look at your resourcing needs. So that's the ideal way to do it. The more normal way, because very few organizations have a live strategic plan that they work to, the more normal way would be if the sales force went out and created their strategy, implemented their strategy, sales started coming in, profits start going up, and the service department is inundated, people start working overtime, service costs go up. And the GM looks at the service manager and says, what are you doing? Why are your costs out of control? And the service manager says, I don't know, but we're inundated. Can't tell what's going on. That's because you don't have a holistic strategy and no one's talking to anyone else. So that's the more normal way that you know that you need to fill a role, is when your costs blow out because of overtime or your service delivery drops because you're inundated. So either way, either looking ahead strategically and proactively, saying, hey, we're going to need more people in 3 months' time. Let's start recruiting now so they're trained up and ready. Or, hey, we needed people 3 months ago. Let's start recruiting now before we lose any more customers. So either one of those will tell you, hey, you've got a role, you need some help, you need some support. So you define that you do need somebody. Who do you need? Now, the most normal thing in organizations, and I hate saying this, but it's true, is that you say, oh, we've got a job. Mary can do that job. Mary, sit in it. And Mary goes, because she's committed to the company, she's loyal, she wants to please you. She says, oh, yeah, sure. She doesn't know what the job is. She doesn't know what the skills needed are. She might not have the skills, qualifications, or attributes, but she's loyal. She's going to say yes. And I've seen that so many times, and that is so wrong. Please don't do that again. If you identify a gap, if you identify that there's a role that needs filling, sit down and think, what is it that I want this role to achieve? What are the deliverables that I can measure that this role can give me? Once I know that, then I can define a clear title for the role and a clear and simple role description and objective. Now let's talk about that title. That title needs to describe what the position is about so that everyone in the organization can say that's what the role is. After sales service. Great, we know what that person does. Warehouse manager. Great, we know what that person does. Forklift driver. Great. Manager of first impressions. What the? Chief Entertainment Officer. Excuse me? So if you're thinking of having weird and wonderful titles, understand that you're going to create confusion. If you put those weird and wonderful titles on your job advert, you are not going to attract as many people as you might, because they will be confused. They'll go, I don't know what that job is, and they'll run. Instead of being attracted like a magnet, they'll be repulsed. So make sure that your position has a clear title, that the deliverables are clearly measurable, so the person who gets into the role knows when they're doing a good job. If you can't measure the deliverables, do you really have a role? Please think about that. Okay, now that you've got the top three, what skills does the person need to have? Are they must-haves or are they desirable? What qualifications? Must-haves or desirables? Attributes? Must-have or desirable? Now, attributes, outgoing personality, attention to detail. Decide what kind of person you want to have in this role, because when you decide that, then you can go to the market and say, this is the person we want. So if I'm reading your job advert, I can go, yes, that's me, or no, that's not me. And if I go, no, that's not me, then I won't put an application in and I won't waste your time. So your position description will lead into your job advert and it will naturally filter the wrong people out. Where in your organization chart will this position fit? I've lost track of the number of people I've spoken to who have started a job and don't know who they're reporting to. That's crazy. We need to know who's supporting this person. The individual needs to know who's supporting them. What authority level are you going to give this person in terms of decision making, in terms of making changes to procedures, processes, the business structure, and in terms of financial authority? Now, financial authority and other authority levels are critical for telling the person how much you trust them and how important they are to your business. I started working for Exxon as a 22-year-old graduate engineer. I knew nothing. I was like a blank sheet of paper, as most graduate engineers are, but I had a $5,000 American authority level. I never used it. If I wanted to spend money, I would go to see my boss, I would go to see a purchasing officer, I would go talk to someone because I didn't want to spend the company's money unnecessarily. Even though it was the largest company on the planet at the time, I didn't want to spend their money unnecessarily. 10 years later in Australia, I was in a middle management position with a large construction materials company. And even though I was in a middle management position, I had zero financial authority. That said to me that I was not trusted, that I had not got the responsibility and the authority to deliver on what I was supposed to deliver. I had to go and ask someone else. So even though I didn't use my financial authority in the other instance, I felt trusted and I felt empowered. So check what authority you're going to give your people and check the unintended consequences of limiting that authority. Let's move into the job advert. We're pushing through here. Going to have a drink. As before, a very clear, very simple job title, followed immediately by hooks and filters. Now, in advertising parlance, a hook is something that draws me in. It's attractive to me. A filter is something that allows me to say, no, I don't want that. And we need both of those as early as possible because we don't want the wrong people applying for the job. We want the hooks to attract the right people. We want the filters to filter out the wrong people. Then we're going to have a short and attractive description of the organization. And I'm going to make available a template for you with those words in there. We'll have an attractive description in the next paragraph of the employee value proposition. The employee value proposition is, what's in it for me? If I join your organization, what do I get? I don't just want a salary these days. That's not enough. I want to know, are you going to give me opportunities to grow? Are you going to give me a broad range of responsibility? Am I going to be part of a multidisciplinary team? Am I going to get travel? What am I going to get? What's in it for me? That's my employee value proposition. A description of the role, including who does it report to and the responsibilities. Next paragraph is a description of the ideal candidate that we want to have apply for the role, including must-haves and the desirables. If it's a must-have, it will have must, need to, will. If it's desirable, it will use the words preferred, could, should. Okay? Finally, the salary or the package and a call to action. Every advert, every piece of marketing literature has a call to action. And generally in a job advert, the call to action is apply to or apply by. Your job advert is an honest sales document. That's what it is. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't pretend you're something you're not. You'll disappoint people, you'll get higher staff turnover. Show transparency all the way through. Have an honest sales document. Let's look at a couple of examples of job adverts. Now this one is a sales manager. It's been put in by a company called Bidvest, who apparently are Australia's leading food service distributor with a network of branches across the country. We know who Bidvest are. Okay, so let's look at the structure of the advert. It's a very clear title. They're looking for a sales manager. That's straightforward. We can work out what a sales manager is and does. Now we've got some hooks and filters. The hook is, this is a career building position. So if I am an ambitious young sales manager, I will want a career building position. I'm immediately attracted. Now the filter, it's in Hobart. For those of you who don't live in Australia, don't know where Hobart is, it is a beautiful city. It is just gorgeous. However, it's in Tasmania. There is a very large body of water between Tasmania and the Australian mainland. So that is a filter. If I don't want to live in Tasmania, I will not want this job. If my dream is to live in Tasmania, I am immediately attracted to this career building description. So I've got hooks and filters straight up front. People are starting to decide whether they are interested and they want to read more, or they're turning the page, they're not interested. Great. Now the organisation, as I said, short description. It's a leading food service distributor, so it's attractive. It's got a network of branches across the country. So I now know two things about it. It's in the food industry. It perceives itself as leading, not trailing, not stable, not mature, but leading. So there's going to be some energy in this business. It's got a network, so there's lots of opportunities in the business for growth. The role. They want a motivated, capable sales manager. So they're looking for someone who's motivated and capable, who can maintain and grow an existing customer base, developing, supporting and leading a sales team. So, hey, I know there's something happening here, and it's in a small but rapidly expanding branch. So don't expect too much when I start, because it's going to be small, but it's going to be my job to grow it. Now let's look at who the ideal candidate is. Will be able to demonstrate a proven track record. That's a great script. Demonstrate proven track record. You want someone who's done this before and you know that they're going to be able to do it again. Successful sales management. We're looking for someone with leadership, strong written and verbal communication. Now, I would imagine someone is going to go through the applications with a fine-tooth comb, looking for grammar and punctuation and spelling, because they're looking for someone with strong written communication, presentation, negotiation skills. Now, we've got a must here. The right individual will also need to possess the potential and obvious motivation to move into a senior position in the foreseeable future. So if you are looking to retire to Hobart for the last 10 years of your working life, you will not qualify for this job. They're looking for someone who's got the potential and motivation to move into a senior position. They're not being ageist, but they're saying we want someone who's going to grow with the business. So if you're looking to retire, don't apply for this job. Next appointment will be driven by ability, delivery, and a call to action. Forward your resume by the 29th of June. So if you're looking at this webinar and you want a sales management position and you want to work in Tasmania, here's your job. Let's look at another one. Completely different. This one's for a mechanical engineer and it's a contract role. Now that's important. Right up front they're saying this is not a permanent role, this is a contract role. And they're being honest, they're being open, they're being transparent. Hooks and filters. It's a central office location close to public transport. Why is that a hook? It means I don't have to pay car parking if I apply for this job. It's a multidisciplinary consultancy. Great, I'm going to work with lots of people. And the filter, experience required in design and analysis of mechanical building services. I could be the best mechanical engineer on the planet, but if I don't have that experience, I shouldn't apply for this job. So I've got hooks and filters right up front. Description of the company. Well established, multidisciplinary, pride themselves in repeat business. So there's a sense of pride here in this business. It's starting to tell me what the ethos and culture is. Specialist civil structural and building services concept to completion. So they see themselves as beginning to end. Now let's look at the employee value proposition and the role. There's 2 paragraphs for this. So you'll be employed as an intermediate to senior mechanical engineer, depending on your experience. You'll be part of a team. Great. So part of the employee value proposition is you'll be in a team. You're not going to be stuck in an office on your own. You'll be responsible for the design and documentation within a range of building projects. So you're going to get lots of exposure to lots of different projects. Great value proposition. Moving on, opportunity to use your technical ability to complete engineering analysis and design of HVAC and associated mechanical services. I don't know what that means. but also to gain knowledge and experience. So here's your value proposition: gain knowledge and experience within a team of passionate and skilled engineers. This may only be a contract role, but you will come out of it a broader, more experienced, more knowledgeable person. They are going to give you something back. Excellent. Now, the ideal candidate, and typical of an engineering company, they've got bullet points, concise, very descriptive. The package: long-term contract, competitive hourly rates, strong project workload moving forward. So they're saying their pipeline is full. It may be a contract, but you'll be here for a while. Broad project responsibility and a call to action. Beautifully put together job advert. Now, those were two professional managerial adverts. There's lots of context, and if you're putting one of those in the newspaper, there's probably $2,000 worth of newspaper space. If you are recruiting someone whose self-perception is not that they're worth a $2,000 space, then a smaller and simpler advert. So lower cost role, simpler advert. You want to attract the individual, not repel them. So if I'm a tradesperson, I would not be attracted by the size of either of those adverts. I would expect to find my role in the classifieds. So if I'm a tradesperson or an unskilled or semi-skilled person, I'll be looking in the classifieds, not in those large text adverts. So here's an example of a much simpler advert attracting a different thinking person. So we've got a clear title. It's a truck driver. It's a truck driver for semi and truck and dog. Now, I'm not a truck driver. Let's move on. But that would be a hook for someone who knows what it is. Now the filter, it's in Caboolture. Caboolture is a small town north of Brisbane in Queensland in Australia. So if I don't want to work north of Brisbane in Queensland in Australia, I'm immediately cancelling myself out of this job. But if I am in a 30, 40, 50 mile radius of Caboolture, I'll go, yeah, I'll read some more. So it is a hook and it is a filter. Semi-walking floor position, now that will mean something to a truck driver. Looks like there's two positions available. Must have. So now we're finding out what the person must have. Front-end loader experience essential. Employee value proposition, you'll get 60 hours work a week. There's going to be reasonable money in this, but you're going to work for it. And a call to action. Very simple, very concise. That's a good advert. Okay, where will I advertise? First place to advertise is internally within the organization. Your existing people need to know that you appreciate them enough that you're going to offer them growth opportunities. So write your advert as you normally would, but then post it internally, either through mass email or on hard copy on notice boards. Give your people an opportunity to apply, give your people an opportunity to grow, either before you go externally or at the same time. Your choice. I'll skip down to offline. You can go to national newspapers for the very large high dollar value jobs, local regional papers, or for the classifieds, your local community news or your small newspapers. Again, your market will read different offline magazines and newspapers. A lot of people looking for jobs are not actively looking in the papers, but my goodness, their partners are. So consider offline advertising if your budget stretches to it. Okay. Now, a lot of the offline newspapers also have an online presence. So our local regional newspaper is called the Courier Mail. They are owned by News Corp. News Corp owns monster.co.uk and career1.com.au. So I know that if I put my advert in that newspaper, it will instantly appear on career1.com.au. So I get a two for one. I may choose not to go offline. I may just want to go online. Now, the beauty of going online is that the very active job seekers are getting updates on what roles are available. They're getting daily or weekly emails with a catalogue of roles that are available. The largest website for advertising online in Australia and New Zealand is seek.com.au, and that is a lot of professional, managerial and executive roles. Closely followed by career1.com.au, which also includes a lot of classified roles. Each of those, about $200, $150 to $200 to advertise on those, which is a big difference from a $2,000 advert for the same quantity of text in a newspaper. Big difference. Another alternative if you're looking for professionals or managerial leadership staff is LinkedIn.com. Now LinkedIn.com, when I looked earlier, it's got something like 170 million people registered. Do they all use it every day? No, absolutely not. Only maybe 10-15% do. However, of that 170 million, some 30% are recruiters. Why do you think recruiters are on LinkedIn? Because they are using it as a database to find candidates. If you are going into the job market, get yourself onto LinkedIn, develop a profile, create a profile. Moving on, mycareer.com.au is another alternative. Monster.co.uk for those of you in the UK. I'm sorry, I don't know the good European sites. An interesting website is bestjobwebsites.co.uk if you're advertising at different levels, great. Careerbuilder.com for the US market, great website. Okay, let's look at using LinkedIn. Now, I mentioned that recruiters charge 15 to 20% of the salary package. Let's say you're offering a salary package of $100,000, and that's including pension, vehicle, computer, phone, whatever salary, and you want to find someone and you will give them that salary package, rounded up, of $100,000. That means that if you go to a professional recruiter, they will charge you between $15,000 and $20,000 to find that person. Next week, if you want to recruit another staff member for a similar job, the recruiter will charge you another $15,000 to $20,000. Next month, the same deal. There are companies spending over $100,000 a year on recruitment costs. Why? You don't need to. Train someone, show them this webinar, teach them how to find the right candidates for you, give them $100,000. It's not a full-time job. They can do other things as well. You don't need to use an external recruiter. Okay, one of the things that recruiters use as a sales pitch is we have a database of candidates ready to go. Now, where do they get that database of candidates? They tell you that you need to advertise your role in the newspaper and online. So you pay them to write an advert for you using the format that I've just shown you. They put the advert in the newspaper at $2,000, online another $200, with their name at the top and their contact details at the bottom. So the people who are applying for your job end up on their database. That's where they get their database from. People like you and me paying them to advertise our jobs in the papers and online. So when a recruiter says, we've got a database, you can come back with and you can say, that's not a database. This is a database. LinkedIn, 170 million people. Options, write your advert, post a job, advertise it as normal, $189 US. You can search for people on LinkedIn using the advanced people search, and I'll come to that in a minute. And you can reference check, find out who do you know who knows these people. So I'm going to bring up LinkedIn and show you how it works. So if you don't have LinkedIn, I strongly advise you to get it. And I'm just bringing up on my other screen my LinkedIn page. Here we go. I'm going to log in. That's me. If you're not already connected with me, please send me an invitation to connect. I am most happy to connect with you. Okay. And what did I just do there? I used RoboForm. That's a shortcut for logging into any website you want to log into without having to remember 40 or 50 different passwords. So that's called RoboForm. I think I paid for that. Now, I'm going to suggest that you go to your settings on LinkedIn, and instead of having a free profile, if you are actively looking to recruit people, change your settings and upgrade to a business account. And so that's where you do it, through the settings page and upgrade. Now where we're going to go to find people, to search for this database for the right people, we're going to bring up the people option here, and we're going to go to advanced search. And here we are. This is the advanced people search. Now I was earlier looking at the Bidvest advert for a sales manager. So let's look for a sales manager located in or near Australia, and I can have any country I choose. And I can also, if I want, put in a postcode and look within miles or kilometers of that postcode. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it at Australia, not Aruba, Australia. I'm going to look at all industries. I could, if I wished, simply look in the food industry for a food sales manager. In fact, let's do that because the Bidvest advert was for a food manager. I'm going to look at all groups. I'm going to look at all members. I'm going to look for English-speaking people. I'm going to look for all company sizes. Seniority level, I'm going to look for a manager. I don't want entry-level students or volunteers. I don't want business owners. I want a sales manager. I'm looking only for potential employees. Now this is important, and I will show you in a minute why that's important. When you are searching for potential candidates, look for people who've said that they are also looking for a job. All companies, great. And now I'm ready to search for sales managers in Australia with a food and beverage background. And they come up in order of their connection to me, so I don't have any first connections. But let's look at who's come up. This gentleman is in Melbourne on the Australian mainland. He said he's interested in career opportunities and job inquiries. Okay, so that's, he will hire, but he's also interested in career opportunities. Now, most people click this as a default. I don't know if this gentleman is actually in the market, but I am happy to send him an email if his background suits me, and it hasn't said much about what he's done. So I know that he's got at least 13 years experience. He's currently National Sales Manager of Retail, which is great. I may choose to contact him, and I already know someone who knows him. Now, if I choose to contact him, I can send him an email because I've upgraded to a business level within LinkedIn. So I can email him directly. I don't need to know his email address. If I do contact him or any of these other people who've said that they're available, I will immediately mention that I've looked at their profile. I've noted that they have said they are open to career opportunities. I will let them know that I'm a hiring manager, not a recruiter, therefore I'm not spamming them, that I have a real job opportunity, and I will give them the hyperlink for the advert. I will then invite them to put through their resume and formally apply. At that point, I'm handing the baton to them. I'm not going to hand them. I'm going to let them know that I've seen their profile, that I'm inviting them to apply for a job. Now, as I said, the majority of people are not on LinkedIn every day, so they may not know about this. They may not receive my email because it goes into their LinkedIn inbox. Some may look at it and go, well, I'm actually not in the job market, and they will update their profile to reflect that. But some, a certain percentage, will go, oh, I've just been headhunted, I will apply. At least they will check out the advert and decide whether they want to apply for my job. So there I have a database of qualified people, sales managers in the food industry at the right level in the country that I'm interested in, speaking the language that I want them to speak. So when a recruiter says, yes, but we have a database, guess what they would do with their database? If they truly have one, they would do exactly what you've just done. They contact the individual, they say, we've got a job offering, are you interested? Exactly what you've just done. Now, that step you can delegate. You say, Liz, I don't have time, that's why I use a recruiter. This you can delegate to an admin person. Those steps, you could show them this recording. Anyone can do what I have just done. You just need to get on, have a profile, have a job advert somewhere that you can send them the link. Okay, so I will come off that and come back to, so that's how we search and contact. We'll look at reference checking again later. Now let's say we get 50 to 60 people applying for the job. We need to use the sorting hat. We'll do an initial crude sort. Now remember, with that sales manager's role, it was very clear you must have excellent written communication skills. I recently advertised for a part-time student to assist me in my business. I put my advert on 2 university websites, about 60 applications. And in the application I said you must have excellent verbal and written communication skills. Now my initial crude sort, some of those applications, the grammar was appalling, full of typos, poorly spelt, very badly structured, and I said no straight away. I put them in the no pile. It was straightforward. I also said you have to have a working visa for Australia, and some were here on student visas and couldn't work, so they were immediately no's. A secondary sort, I suggest you print the resumes that have gone through the initial crude sort, print those, put them into 3 piles, yes, maybe, and no. And the yes, maybe, no will be according to the must-haves and the desirables. If they have your must-haves, obviously they go into the yes pile. If they don't have your must-haves, then they go into your no pile. If you're not sure from the resume or the application, put them into the maybe pile and check them later. If you have enough yeses, then you don't have to worry about your maybes, and your no's are obviously straight away a no. Respond to your people early, and one of the things I'll be offering you at the end is a template to say thank you for applying. That is so rare, and it's a courtesy. And I suggest that you delegate a detailed sort spreadsheet. Now there's 2 ways to do your spreadsheet. 3. One is manually drawn out on a piece of paper. Second is use something like Excel or Lotus. And the third is to use a professional package. And again, you can delegate this. I once worked with a recruiter, not for a recruiter, but with a recruiter. I was the hiring manager. The recruiter forwarded 6 candidates to me for interview, and I asked the recruiter, what do they look like? He said, I don't know, I've never met them. This was interesting. He had never done a first interview. He didn't even telephone interview them. He just shortlisted them and sent them through to me. I learned a lot from that contract. Remember, 20% of the salary package, and he hadn't even interviewed them. What he did, though, he insisted that they send their resumes through in Microsoft Word format, not PDF, and he had a piece of software that scans Microsoft documents and looks for keywords. If the keywords in the job advert were in the document, they got shortlisted. So the resumes weren't even cited by a human being before they were shortlisted. It was computer filtering. So if a computer can do it, you can delegate this part to an admin function. Do the initial crude sort, do the secondary sort. The only thing that you might want to do is have a look at the maybes pile and a quick flick through the no's pile to make sure good people haven't been missed. So looking at a spreadsheet, suggest that you put the applicants in a vertical column and your selection criteria down the left-hand side, mark it essential, highly desirable, or desirable according to the job description. Then simply go through each candidate and traffic light them, red, amber, or green. If they have the essential, green. If they don't have it or you're not sure, amber. If they absolutely don't have it, red. Then, once you've done that, you don't even have to think about what's the name of the person, where's their resume, did I take the right notes? You will look down the columns of your spreadsheet, who's got the most green, do they have green for the essentials? So applicant 1 and applicant 3 have green. I will probably, on essentials, I will probably interview them. The interview result for applicant 2 was a red. Reference checkings, I don't know why we did a reference check on applicant 2 when the interview result was a red. However, reference checkings for applicants 1 and 2 were green. Didn't do a reference check on applicant 3. Decision was fairly straightforward. Applicant 1 had most green, had only 1 red. It was a desirable, so experience in the industry was desirable, not essential. So obviously their experience was in a different industry. So you can do a rough and ready manual spreadsheet. The downside of that is you probably have to do another one next time you recruit. If you use a professional tool, this one's called Apollo Select. It's about $2,000 to set it up initially, but then you've got it for the rest of your life. And once you set up a position on here with the essential, highly desirable, that's it, it's set up forever. Now the beauty of this one is it attaches a numeric value to the essentials, a different numeric value to the highly desirables, and a different numeric value to the desirables. It also attaches a numeric value to the green, amber and red and multiplies out. So essential, for this one looks like an admin position. Experience with the payroll process, essential. That would be a 10. If it's got a green, it would also be a 10. So you're immediately attaching 100 to Cliff Brownwell, whoever Cliff is. At the end of your assessment, you can look at the numeric values of all your multipliers from your essentials plus your green, ambers and reds, your highly desirable, green, amber and red, and your desirable. And then you can choose to interview the people with the highest numbers. So you know immediately that you're getting the most qualified, most suitable people, and you're only investing your time in that. Now this part, the data input, can again be delegated so that you only have to look at what the results are. And this is a great tool that you can get someone else in the organization to do for you, which means you are not spending your time reading through and wading through lots of applications. But the beauty of this is once you set it up, you can recruit for that same job as many times as you want and you don't have to set it up again, which is a fantastic time and money saver. So let's say we've shortlisted, we've decided who we want to interview. We need to prepare for the interview. So the first thing we need to do is sit down and pre-format what questions we are going to ask based on what we want the role to deliver. Now it makes sense, but so often we don't. And we need to make sure that everyone is asked the same questions and graded on their responses, and then that we have a separate part of the interview which are specific questions to that individual based on their resume. And I'll go through that, what that means in a minute. Okay, let's look at the interview format. The first few minutes are about the welcome and the introductions, putting them at ease. Did you get a car park okay? Did you find us okay? Do you want a drink of water? All of that, all those courtesy things that we do, help them get settled in. Why do we want them settled in? Because the more relaxed they are, the more this is a business meeting. It's not an interrogation, it is a business meeting. Will this person fit the role? Will this person fit the organization? Now, unless you want them to live in a state of permanent stress, it's best to find out what they are like in a natural, at-ease situation. Then we ask some general background questions. What was it that attracted you to the role? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Very general background questions that we will ask of everyone. What are your ambitions in the next 3 years? What do you see that you can bring specifically to this organization? So every single question, every single person who sits in that chair can be asked those questions. And you can write down their responses so you can compare who will bring the most, who's the right kind of fit, who's got the attributes that you're looking for. Then you go into your role-specific questions. Now, the role-specific questions are always behavioral questions. And again, I will come back to those in a moment. That could be 20 minutes. Then we describe the role for 3 to 5 minutes. Open up and ask the candidate if they have any questions. Now, a well-prepared candidate will have questions for you. For example, Why is the role open? Who does the role report to? What are the measures of success in the role? What are the next steps? What are you looking for in a candidate? Be prepared to answer all of those questions. And again, as part of my offer, I'm going to give you a list of candidate questions that you can prepare answers for. So again, you are selling the role and the organization to the individual as much as they are selling themselves to you. It's a two-way due diligence. Finally, in the last 2 to 3 minutes, you explain the next steps. You tell them how many people you're interviewing, when you plan to make a decision, how you are going to get back to them, when you're going to get back to them. Leave it at that. So that's your format, and then you close. So the first interview is generally a screening interview. It may be done by just one person. You ask open questions, and you use the format I've just described in first and second interviews. Open questions are those that invite a conversational response. They start with who, where, when, how, what reason, tell me, or describe. I know tell me and describe are not open questions, but in the purposes of an interview, they have the same result. Tell me about a time when you had a difficult negotiation. What was the result? Tell me a time when you had to handle an underperforming staff member. How did you approach it? Describe a time where you had to handle a difficult manager. What were the results? And those are all difficult ones, but that's just what came to mind. So you are asking them specific behavioral questions that get them to describe what they did in the past. So the best predictor of future performance is past behavior. You want clear, specific examples of when the candidate displayed the skills, abilities, and attributes that you need in the role, or when she didn't. Follow up with searching questions on results and how she handled failure. If it went wrong, how did she recover it? What did she learn from it? Closed questions are useful for tightening up a conversation or bringing a topic to an end. Is there anything else you want to tell me about that? No. Great. Move on. Probing questions I describe as, my brother when he was a kid used to have this habit of taking a screwdriver and prizing snails out of their shells. A disgusting thing to do. It belongs back in Ireland in my childhood. Probing questions are a gentle way of pulling the snail out of the shell, getting in under their protective armor and finding out a little bit more about them. And you use those open questions. Tell me more about that circumstance. How did the staff member react? Tell me what happened to the team as a result of that action. Those are probing questions. They get in a little bit further and find out a little bit more about the specifics. Probing questions also mean that you're not getting a fairy tale. The person's not making it up, and you want more content. So once we finish our round of first interviews, we update our spreadsheet, and then we choose from the update who are we going to second interview. Now at this point we may decide to profile, or we may leave the profile for later. The second interview will probably include more senior staff and perhaps a panel, so that you get a range of views of people looking at this candidate. You'll go much more searching on the questions. Again, exactly the same format, the introduction, at ease, general questions, role-based questions, open up to the candidate. You'll ask more behavioral questions, and at this point it's entirely appropriate to find out the candidate's salary expectations if that hasn't already been covered. Let's look at the questions you never ask. And again, after second interview, update the sort. The questions you never ask. If you couldn't ask this chap in the white polo neck, don't ask your candidate. If you would not reasonably ask a white, able-bodied, heterosexual, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, 30-something male, then don't ask your candidate. Okay? So, for example, when I was in my early 30s and I applied for an internal role with the organization I was working with, I was in a middle management role. This was a slightly higher level. My then manager who was interviewing me said, Liz, you're in your early 30s. When are you planning to start a family? Now, Would he ask white, able-bodied, heterosexual, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, 30-something male that question? No, of course he wouldn't. The question in and of itself is completely redundant. The question he should have asked is, Liz, what are your career plans for the next 3 years? What are your career plans for the next 5 years? Now, if I had been planning a family, I would possibly, maybe, have said, I'm looking to take a 1 year off, but here's where I want to end up. And then we could have had a conversation because I've introduced it. And the conversation would have been logistical. How will we handle that? However, when you ask a question like that, which is a redundant, inappropriate question, the candidate can either lie or tell the truth. And let's say the candidate tells the truth and the question is that question. The candidate hasn't taken offense and still stays in the room and tells the truth. Say, no, I'm not planning to start a family in the near future. In fact, I'm not planning to start a family at all. 2 weeks later, an accident happens. Candidate ends up pregnant. Told the truth at interview, however, and that is why that's a redundant question. There's no point in asking it. Equally, there's no point in asking a hypothetical question. What would you do if? What would you do if you were confronted with an underperforming staff member? What would you do if a client said to you, I don't want to work with you anymore? What would you do if a customer came to you and said, I want a 30% price reduction? There is no point in asking that question because that question only tests your candidate's imagination. And are you testing whether your candidate's got a good imagination, or are you testing if they will do the job? And the only test that they can do the job is what they've done in the past. Their imagination, unless it's a creative role in an advertising agency, their imagination is not relevant. So what would you do if kind of questions, again, don't tell you whether the candidate can do the job. It just tells you if they've got a good imagination. An alternative question was, tell me a time where a customer has come to you and said, I want a price reduction of 30% or a large price reduction. What did you do? So you want to know that what did, not what would. Now, I suggest for the first part of this slide, those inappropriate questions, put into Google equal opportunity, employment law, and put in your country name, and you will be sent through to the website that's appropriate for your country. The one I've got there is government website for Australia. So those are the questions you never ask and useful alternatives. The questions, again, you don't ask anything on race, colour, sex, sexual preference, age, physical or mental disability, marital status, family carers' responsibility, pregnancy or family planning, anything about their religion, anything about their political opinion, their national extraction or social origin. And there are 1 or 2 minor exceptions to that, but they are so minor that I'm just going to say, do not ask these questions. It's not worth it. You could lose a really good candidate. You could get a really good candidate offside. And if you don't offer the job, they might decide to sue you for discrimination. That gets expensive, gets messy. Just don't go down that path. Move on. Closing the interviews. Make sure you tell them what the next steps are, what the timing is. Tell them will there be additional rounds of interviews. Tell them when you will notify the candidates, and ask them, can you let me know if you get another role in the interim? That way you don't have to spend time putting their resume or their application into a filter list. You can take them out and put them into the no pile if they get another job in the meantime. And that's perfectly reasonable. Profiles. Now, profiling candidates, profiles are an extra data point only. They are not a be-all and end-all. They take a snapshot of where your candidate is on the day, at the time that they do the profile. Profile should be behavioural, and it should have some legal standing. It should be tested. And there are very, very few that fall within that gamut. The Apollo is one. The Hogan Suite is another. Now, I use the Hogan Suite but only on senior executives because it is so darned expensive. It measures strengths, and it also measures potential derailers in the job. The Apollo measures 34 behavioral attributes, success attributes. Can work at executive, management, sales, call center, and general workforce level. Can be done online, instant report PDF. Excellent profile, and it's associated with that Apollo Select, but it is also a standalone. Profiles you don't use, personality tests. Because someone has a certain personality does not mean that they can perform. So your Myers-Briggs might tell you whether you're working with an ideas kind of person. It doesn't tell you if any of the ideas are any good. They could have great ideas, but their ideas might be absolute rubbish. Equally with your DISC, you might have someone who's high dominant. That doesn't mean they're a leader. It doesn't mean that they've got management skills. It simply means they've got a forceful personality. And that might have been great in the 1970s in leadership. That doesn't mean anything today. So strongly advise, don't use a personality test. All that tells you is what their personality is. It doesn't tell you any predictor of success or performance in a role. By all means, after you've made the job offer, after they've said yes, by all means then do the personality test if you must. That may help you with the onboarding. Okay, and I know I'm going to put some people offside because some people love personality tests as part of recruitment, but think, do you want a predictor of success, or do you want to find out what kind of guy they are? And please be aware of that. Now, I'm going to take you through an example here of a profile, if I can get my other screen, my internet to work for me. And this is from the Apollo profile. This is an individual. It is a real individual, but we've changed his name. And it's a profile of a salesperson. And it's a sales profile. Again, I'm going to zoom in. So this is the Apollo profile. This is how it comes straight off the internet to you. It uses a traffic light system, red, amber, and green. It also norms against a success group and provides you with a normal distribution curve with standard deviation. Normed against, average of 50, so median of 50. So it's split up into chapters. The first chapter is career drives. This individual, Scott Sales, has a career drive score of 60, and he's got a green traffic light. He's a high achiever. He's going to get results. He's not money focused, which is great in sales. It means he's not going to cut corners just to get the sale. He's very ambitious. He may create friction through his ambition. So one of the things I want to check on the second interview, and definitely if I reference check this individual, and this is where we use profiles, we use them as data points to ask more questions. We're going to get in under the shell and probe a little. I want to know, when I'm doing reference checking, has Scott created friction in the past through his ambition? Has he stomped over people? Has he caused problems with others in trying to get promotion? I'm going to ask those questions in reference check because of this report. I'll find out more about this individual and how he will behave in my organization as a result of how he behaved in the past. Scott's reasonably independent in his thinking. He has a reasonable need for recognition. He's not going to be high maintenance. Is he coping? He's got a low need for job security, so he could take some risks. That's good. He's got a very high sense of responsibility. He may say yes too often. And again, I want to reference check that. How does Scott manage his workload? Does he overload himself? Does he say yes too often and then fail to deliver? So those are questions that this would prompt me to ask. He's got reasonable stress resilience. He's reasonably sensitive. He's not a little precious child. In his negotiation style, look, now I've got an amber. Now I've got, oh, this is a sales role with an amber on negotiation. Okay, he's going to be innovative. He's going to come up with good ideas. He's analytical. So these two together say, hey, the guy's going to come up with some creative solutions for his clients. Excuse me, I'll page back up. Back up again. However, in his negotiation style, he's going to be very assertive. So this is a person who may create conflict with clients and with other staff members, perhaps from other departments. I am going to want to know from reference checking, how assertive has Scott been in the past? Have there been any instances of conflict with clients? Have you lost any clients because he's been overly assertive? Has he had falling outs with other staff members or peers? Scott's also very highly competitive. He's going to go for the win-lose. That again, I'm going to want to find out if he's gone for a win-lose in the past and potentially lost a client. Scott's got the ability to be collaborative, and he's got the ability to compromise. So that sales style says to me, Scott's probably a transactional salesperson as opposed to a long-term relation salesperson. Let's look ahead on how he works with people. His people orientation, I've got a red light. Red traffic light, I'm getting concerned. Okay, he has a very low need to be sociable. He probably won't want to go to network meetings to build my brand. He's probably not going to be a relationship salesperson. He's going to be a transactional salesperson. Transactional sales, for example, your used car salesman. Relationship sales, think Lexus. They expect to sell 4, 5, 6 Lexus to the same person over the lifetime of the customer. The relationship is everything. Second car salesperson, they don't expect to see that client ever again. So I want to know what he is like about building relationships with his customers if I'm recruiting for a relationship sales job. If I'm recruiting a second-hand salesperson, I'm in happy heaven with Scott right now. Teamwork, he can work in a team. He's reasonably extroverted. His intimacy is out of the green. It's in amber. He doesn't want to build close relationships. He doesn't want to get to know his clients based on this. So again, I'm going to ask questions about Scott's history of building relationships with customers and with other staff members. Now, moving into how does Scott use his power and influence? Again, I've got an amber light. He's got a very high power ratio. He's a forceful salesperson. So I'm really thinking transactional sales here. If I choose to do reference checking on Scott, I am going to find out about his sales style. And one of the questions will be, describe Scott's sales style. Describe a time where he has developed a long-term relationship with a customer. Describe a time where you lost a customer as a result. I want to find out both sides of Scott. I won't just ask questions in the hopes of getting a negative answer. I'll ask both sides of the same question. He's a very quick decision maker. Again, this worries me because he is so strong. Even though he's innovative and analytic, unless he's got a very high IQ, these decision makers could be off the cuff. These decisions could be off the cuff. So I'm going to test that in reference checking. How does Scott make decisions? Does Scott have a history of sound decision making? Give me an example. Has there been a time where Scott's made a decision and everyone's regretted it? Give me an example. So again, ask both sides of the same question. He's reasonably persuasive. Now his value score, again I'm down at 33. I'm on red traffic light. He's reasonably altruistic. He does care about people. He's got trust, so trust is important to him, but loyalty is not. Loyalty is not important to Scott at all. So if he gets a better offer, he's just going to walk away from you. He's not going to go, I'm loyal, I'm going to finish this project. The team means a lot to me. The company means a lot to me. He will leave. And that's just the way it is. Will Scott conform to company rules? Probably not. He's going to be more pragmatic than others. I'm going to ask questions in the reference checking section about, has Scott got a history of following rules and guidelines? Has there ever been any problems with Scott and his expenses? I want to know these things. Does Scott follow the company rules? Okay, how does Scott manage himself at work? He's back in the green. He can set goals. He will follow procedures, but he's a little bit unorthodox. So that together with the conforming, I'm going, ooh, he could be challenging. I know he's already going to be difficult to manage because he's got this high power, low interest in forming relationships. He's self-organized and he's proactive. So he's a very powerful salesperson, but I have questions now that I need answered. This is how you use a profile when you're recruiting people. Use it to create more questions. Would I dismiss Scott as a candidate the basis of that profile? Absolutely not. I would never dismiss a candidate on the basis of a profile. By the time I've done that profile, I've already met Scott and I've decided to invest money finding out more about him. Now I just have more questions. And those I will answer either in second interview or in reference checking. Now generally people give you referees on their resumes and generally they give you mobile phone numbers. Before you do the reference checking, ask them if it's okay to call the referees. Try very hard to get previous employers or managers, not peers, not friends, not people who've known them from a social club. A previous employer or manager will have the same relationship with them as you will have. If you can, make the phone call on a landline. Why? If you make the phone call on a mobile number, you could be calling anyone. You don't know who you're calling. On a landline, if you know where the previous employer or manager is working, look it up on white pages or the internet, get the landline number and ask to speak to that individual. It's a private call. The person who is on reception doesn't need to know why you are calling. If that person then transfers you through to a mobile, at least you know you're getting through to the right place. Record the answers. So ask a core group of reference checking questions of every single referee to get a holistic picture. Record the answers, take notes, create a word picture. And again, I've got available a template that you can use. Spend some time verifying the accuracy of the resume. When did your candidate start and finish at that location? Why did they leave? What role did they have? What were their responsibilities? So remember, 70% of people stretch the truth on their resume. This is your opportunity to find out. And then ask some behavioral interview questions, such as those that I mentioned when I was looking through the profile for Scott Sales. Get specific examples, take lots of notes. Now there are two questions that are what I call the money questions on any reference check. The first one is, what advice would you give to John, Mary, Fred, Scott, next manager to get the highest performance from him? Take notes. The final question is the one that must be asked at every reference check. Would you re-employ him? Now, up to this point, it's been very formal and very safe for the referee. At this point, they're going to start walking a tightrope because a number of times they would not re-employ. They may be happy to give a reference, but they wouldn't have the person back. Listen when you ask that question for the slight hesitation, or the breath. If there is a hesitation, here is your script. I have just put my pen down. I'm going off the record. Was there something in the employment history or in his behaviors that has caused you to say or to hesitate and doubt whether you would re-employ? You've just said, I've gone off the record. I've put my pen down and please don't take notes at this point. At this point, when I have done reference checking, I found out that someone's stolen cash. And it was entirely off the record. It was very interesting. Referees need to be careful that they are not slandering or libeling, because if that information gets back to the candidate, they could be sued. They need to protect themselves, protect their mortgage, their home, their company. You need to make it very safe for them to be as honest as possible. If they do hesitate but go, oh, yeah, sure, and not want to tell you more, just put a question mark against that question. If each referee hesitates or refuses to answer that question, or in some way tries to distract you, then you already have a picture of that there is a history of problematic behavior, but you don't know what it is. That's just data. So your resume, your interview, your profile, and your reference checking are all data points. Now, how do we use LinkedIn for reference checking? This is very much a backdoor method. It depends on your degrees of separation, and it's around who do you know who knows this person. And let me show you where you can get that information on LinkedIn. So we're going to go back to People and Advanced Search. And previously we went here. This time we're going to go Reference Search. This gives you the background on who do you know who knows that person. Now, I'm going to put in my own name. So company. 2005, 2012, 15, goodness, I'm in the future. I will find out who I'm connected to, who has worked at Third Sigma and who knows me. And two names have come up, they're actually the same person, she was my PA. So reference checking Liz Cassidy at Third Sigma from someone on LinkedIn who has worked for me. There are other people on LinkedIn who are either not employed by Third Sigma or haven't listed it for whatever reason. And Sarah, now Birch, is in the UK and she was my PA. So it's possible to go and have a look at Sarah, say, can we contact Sarah and ask her what Liz was like to work for, what kind of a manager Liz was, and hopefully she will say nice things. Okay, so when you do a profile search, a reference search, you can get a list of people who are in your network who know the individual that you're looking for. All the more reason to have a LinkedIn network. Okay, that's LinkedIn. If you choose to contact that person, you need to make sure that it is off the record and it's not a formal reference check. The individual has not listed that person as a referee, but you are doing this quietly because you want some more information, should you choose to go by that method. Before you make an offer, get evidence of their qualifications. If they have a degree or a diploma or some such thing, check the institution that they got the qualification from. Go to the website. I know this is terribly suspicious, but gee, it happens. If I wanted to get Masters of Business Administration, I could probably go to the masters.com website, if such a thing exists, and buy it for $50. I know that's possible because I know someone who has bought qualifications. Is the website a .edu or a .com? If it's a .com, it's a company and there's a good chance the qualification has been bought. Not in all instances, but it's possible. If it's a .edu, then it's more likely that the qualification has been earned. What licenses do you need the person to have? Front-end loader license, driver's license, forklift license. Take a copy, put it on the individual's file. If you need them to have a work visa, get a copy of their passport and their work visa. If they're going to be working in a sensitive area or with cash, you can get police or background security checks. I have an organisation in Australia that I know that does background security checks, and there's an organisation that I know of in America that does background security checks. I don't know one in the UK as yet, but I do know that certainly in Australia and possibly in the other places, you can simply go down to your local police station, fill out a form, hand over some money, and find out if the individual has a police record. That's important if they're going to be working in a sensitive area. You may or may not want to pay for a medical. That's problematic because if the medical does show up something and you choose not to make a job offer, are you discriminating? So if you do choose to pay for a medical, it is a few $1,000s to pay for that. Make sure that the candidate knows that it's simply part of the process and it doesn't impact on job offers. With all the evidence, cite and take copies for file. Now, making the offer itself. Check if the individual's got any reservations about the role of the company. Ask them, do you have any outstanding questions? Is there anything you're unsure about? Initially, make the offer verbally. And once you get it verbal and you've taken notes of all the conditions and what you've negotiated, put those conditions into the contract. Don't send them a formal contract straight away. Make the offer verbally. Check if there's anything that needs to be negotiable. For example, I've got a client who was offered a car park worth $2,000 in the middle of the city. He rides a scooter. doesn't want a car park. He asked for the $2,000 to be part of his salary because money was more important to him than a car park. I have other candidates and clients who would love to have a car park as part of their salary package. But there's lots of things you can negotiate on. The contract. Now, the contract is a legal document, protects both you and the employee. I suggest that you get your employment contracts reviewed or written by a lawyer. Make sure that all of these paragraphs are included. The position title and the duties, the start date, the hours of work. If you are legally allowed to have a probationary period where you can end the employment without giving a reason, make that probationary period as long as possible. Any annual sick, bereavement, parental carers leave, put all of that in the contract. Refer to policies, employee handbooks or procedures. Include a copy because if they're going to sign it, they're going to comply with your policies. It's useful if they've seen them. Termination conditions. It is very doubtful that this employee will stay with you until their retirement. You know the person is going to leave. Set up a friendly departure right up front. How do you expect the departure to happen? What are the conditions of termination? How much notice does either side give? Will there be provision for garden leave? What information can they take with them? Set it all up in advance. Any other special employment conditions? Will you expect them to relocate? Will you expect them to work at different branches? Set that up in advance. Do you want them to be available out of hours or on weekends? Tell them. How often will you review the salary? What happens if they're employed elsewhere whilst they're employed by you? Are you okay with them having a part-time job? Are you okay with them running their own business, perhaps network marketing? If you're okay with that, put it in as part of the contract, but if there is other employment you're not okay with, perhaps setting up their own business in the same field as you, again, put that in. What career development will you offer? What are your confidentiality and non-disclosure requirements? If you are building and expanding your business, your employees will know what your marketing strategy is. You probably don't want them going down to the local pub and telling their friends about that. Put in a confidentiality or non-disclosure clause. Non-competition, don't want them competing with you during or after the employment. And equally, non-competition covers approaching your clients after they leave and approaching your staff after they leave. You don't want them headhunting your staff. In terms of discoveries or inventions, if they write a new process, a new procedure, create a new product, whilst they are working for you and being paid by you, who owns that new idea? Who's got the intellectual property? Put a clause in. There's a good chance that you do, but please check that with your lawyer and make sure it's in the contract and your new employee knows. Are you going to pay pension or superannuation? At what level? And make sure that your position description, including the deliverables, is attached to the appendix. I have coached clients for underperforming, it's been terribly sad, when they were employed as they perceived to do one job, and when they came on board into the organization, they were given an entirely different job. So the contract needs to actually have the position description in it. Let's say you're bringing the person on board. How do you bring them on board? What support do you give them? Obviously, you're going to plan an induction. I say obviously, because it is now. Be there to welcome them. Don't make an out-of-town trip on the day a new staff member arrives. Be there. Make sure you are there to welcome them, introduce them to their colleagues, and generally just support them. Have all the documentation and paperwork ready. Please delegate this. Tell people that they're coming. It's outstanding how many times new staff members come on board and their teammates don't even know that they're starting, don't even know why they're starting, what they're there for. Tell people in advance that you have a new staff member arriving, what the purpose of the role is, so that people have context. And on day one, review the role through the position description with the individual again to make sure everything is clear and understood. If there are problems, set up an expectation of openness, and if you've followed this process all the way through, Everything we're talking about here is around transparency. So if you've got an expectation of openness, you can continue that. Set up status reviews at least weekly during their probation period, so they know they've got somewhere to come to if they're heading for the iceberg. And you can give them feedback early. If you're seeing potential problems, let them know and you can steer them away from problems and disasters early. Please don't wait till the end of the probation period when it's too late to tell them that they're not performing or that they don't fit. Give them the best opportunity to adapt to your organization and your culture. And on that, just have another drink. So what we have covered, my goodness, we've covered a lot. How to identify the gap in the role, creating the position description, the elements and how to write the job advert, where the job advert needs to go for your ideal target candidate, how to sort through the applications and prepare for the interview, the questions you ask, the questions you never ask, how to structure the interview, the critical step of reference checking, what to do when you're profiling, what profiles to use, what profiles not to use, and how to use the profile as a data point. Set up the offer, what to put in the contract, and how to plan for onboarding, and how to access the world's largest database of potential employees. So we've covered all of that. I have to ask, have I delivered on my promise? Heck yeah. Now, all of this is great, and you've got access to this webinar. The good bit from all of this is that you can learn and apply all of this. You can recruit new staff yourself. You can delegate parts of that. You can save time because your interviews are going to be tighter. You're going to be doing fewer interviews because you're going to be interviewing the right people because you've attracted them through the right advert. You're going to save money. You won't be spending 15 to 20% on every position with a recruiter. That's money that goes straight back into your bottom line. You can save time, save money, and get great staff. That's the good bit. The problem is the knowing-doing gap. It's bridging the gap between new information and implementing that information. And there is a lot to implement. There's a huge gap. For example, psychologists say that in 48 hours, you'll already have forgotten most of what I taught you today, as well as what you thought of when I taught you today. In a couple of weeks, you won't even remember being on this webinar, much less what we discussed, and that's not a happy day. So to close that gap, to bridge that gap, or to put a bridge over that gap, you need some guidelines, you need resources, you need templates, you need the tools, and you need ongoing support. You need a roadmap. Now, I know you've been taking notes, but have a look at your shelf behind you or in the trunk of your car or under your bed in the suitcase, all the notes you've already taken that you never read. In fact, the notes that you've even forgotten that you've taken because you forgot you went on the course. So I'm offering you today, and I said once I've given you lots of value and delivered on my promise, I would make you an offer. And my offer to you today is the template, the fill in the gaps template. I've already put in the script on how to describe your company, how to describe the role, how to describe the candidate. All you've got to do is fill in the gap. Samples of job adverts, so you can literally copy and paste ones that have been already done. An interview template with space to take notes, the questions you ask every single person, and then space to write in questions that are based on the job. It's exactly the same, a reference checking template, how to ask questions, what questions to ask, space for your notes. Emails for initial responses to say thank you for applying, how to book the interview, and no thank you emails. So you don't even have to create those, just copy and paste them. 34 attribute behavioral interview questions based on that Apollo profile, 34 attributes of success. A behavioral interview question for every single one of those attributes. All you've got to do is pick and choose which attributes suit the role that you're recruiting for. So obviously a sales role, you're going to want someone with negotiation skills and good people skills. So those are attributes that you really need. Stretching, can they do the job? Will they do the job? How will they fit interview questions? Now those are straight out of an Amazon Kindle best-selling book that I have written for candidates. To help candidates prepare for interviews, I provided those questions. Again, you can choose which questions you want to use in your interview. Also included in there are a list of questions that candidates will ask. So you've got that. And I'll give you a recruitment guidebook. Included in the guidebook is everything we've covered in this webinar, but you can hand that to a staff member and say, flick through the pages, use this, follow this process. You can adapt it as a procedure to give to someone else to do for you. So you've got an internal recruitment procedure straight away as a result of this. Also, and I'm giving you the steak knives here, I'm going to give you 25 more behavioural reference checking questions, and that's based on the Apollo profile. Behavioural questions that you can ask in addition to those general reference checking questions. You get a downloadable copy of this webinar. So instead of having it for 2 days, you can have it forever. Why do that? When you are developing your leadership team, your management team, you want to train them on how to recruit new staff, give them this webinar as well as a guidebook. Sit them in front of a computer screen, get them to take some notes. I will also give you a guidebook on how to run interviews, behavioural interviews. How do you structure behavioural questions? How do you put people at ease? How do you build rapport with them? What is rapport? How do you calibrate when they're uncomfortable? So sometimes when you're in an interview, you will make people uncomfortable with your question. And it may be that they want to stretch the truth because they know that they're on thin ice. How do you test when they're uncomfortable? That's when you calibrate. What are open questions? How do you structure open questions? The questions you don't ask. Questions to ask around the resume. How to describe the role and how to wrap it up. A complete guidebook on how to run a behavioural interview. So you've got all of that, plus, I will personally review a position description, an advert, your interview questions for your next recruitment project. And I will be there 24/7 to support you by email. Will I answer your email 24/7? No, absolutely not. But you can email me 24/7 and I will get back to you as quickly as I can to support you. That's ongoing. Third Sigma has been around for over 7 years. I've been around in this industry for over 10 years. I'm not going anywhere. So I will be there to support you, and I guarantee you that I will review a position description, job advert, and your interview questions for your next recruitment project, because some of this you will need to finesse. The first time you will need a little bit of feedback and a little bit of extra support. I'm here to do that. I'm not going to dump this on you. Remember when you went to high school, imagine if at your first year at high school, your teacher had come in and said, here's 5 years worth of textbooks, read them, come and do your exam in 5 years' time. No, they were there for you. You had tutorials, you had classes, you had opportunity for debriefing and feedback and support. I will do that for you. I will be there for you. And my personal guarantee, I don't want anybody not happy with me. There's some of this that you're going to go, hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have bought that. That's great. Tell me. I will give you a full refund, no questions asked. So that's my personal guarantee. If you're not happy in any way with your recruitment roadmap package, in the next 30 days, I will give you a full refund, no questions asked. So let's go over to the recruitment roadmap website, and you can go there right now, and I will show you where to find it. Bring this over, get Scott out of the way. thirdsigma.com.au, the recruitment roadmap, and that should come up, and you can go to the bottom of the page and simply download it now. So there it is. What you get: the guidebook, sorting processes, set up the offer and the contract, job advert template, 34 behavioural questions, my no risk personal guarantee. Go to the bottom of the page. For only $297 you get all of this until the 22nd of June. And for this webinar special, your investment is only $197. You can click on the download, and that is there for you right now. And that should take you straight through to the checkout. And if you're watching this, there you are. You've got your webinar special, $197. Simply click on that. You can check out with PayPal, put in your credit card or your own PayPal account, and that will be available for you as an instant download. So go on over there right now, thirdsigma.com.au, the recruitment roadmap. So that's only $197 for your webinar investment. After the 22nd of June, it will be $297. If I run the webinar again, I will reduce it because it's a webinar special. So this is a full turnkey recruitment package. You could actually set up a recruitment business right out of the box using this. It's got everything you need to start running a recruitment business. And if you run your own business, this is everything you need to train a staff member to recruit staff for you. So you don't have to do it yourself with my support. So pop on over to your recruitment roadmap. I'll personally review your position description, and the first 10 people who order out of this webinar, I will also give you a gift. You won't be paying for it. I will gift you the employee handbook policies template that I use. You can change and adapt it to suit you personally. It's not for resale. You're not buying it, so it's all care, no responsibility from my part. Give it to someone to adapt into the language that suits your organization and your culture. Change it to suit your rules, but everything is in there. You've got a computer policy, you've got an internet policy, you've got a harassment policy, you've got a bullying policy, you've got a company car policy, you've got a credit card policy, you've got a cash advance policy. Anything you could possibly think of is in that employee handbook, and I am going to give that to you as a gift from me to you because you're one of the first 10 people who've ordered. So go right ahead. You've got my guarantee, and if there's no risk to you at all, I'm not going anywhere. I've been here for 7 years. The business is continuing. I'm continuing. If you're not in any way happy with your recruitment roadmap, then I will give you a full refund with no questions asked. There's no way, because you're downloading electrons, you can't send the product back to me and I'll say, yes, when I receive it, I'll give you a refund. No, if you want the refund, I will give it to you. There is no risk for you. So pop on over to thirdsigma.com.au, the recruitment roadmap. Download it now. It's only $197. And when you're ready, send me through a position description, a job advert, and your interview questions for your next recruitment project. And for the first 10 people, I will give you an employee handbook. Now, the employee handbook alone, I had a colleague tell me that he recently had a consultant come in and write an employee handbook for him. That employee handbook was $2,000. For $197, you're getting all of this, and I'm going to give you the employee handbook. So you're already getting a huge package of information, a coach who's going to walk along beside you, and a $2,000 gift. This to me is a no-brainer, and there's no risk. Go on ahead, go to thirdsigma.com.au, the recruitment roadmap, download it, and feel free to send me any questions on an email. So I will put on this recording, just below the recording, I'll put a clickable link where you can email me with any questions as you've been watching this recording. And the reason this is a recording and it's not the live webinar is I had dreadful problems with my internet service provider during the live webinar, so this has had to be a recording. So please email me with any questions, let me know what's happening for you, and thank you very much.